Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Couples Academy Show. My name is Asani. Good to see each and every one of you here with me. Listen, I hope you've been enjoying this series. We are on an intimacy series, how to restore intimacy after infidelity, after an affair. And we've been walking through this meticulously, and I'm going to take my time with this, and I'm not going to rush because I'm going to give you what it is that you need. Now, for all of those who are tuning in, whatever city, state, and country you're calling in from, please let us know so that we can acknowledge you. We always like connecting with people around the globe. Just a couple quick announcements before we dive in. We do have a last chance weekend coming up. If you have not registered, it is not too late. June 7th through the 9th, July 12th through the 14th, and August the 9th through the 11th. To keep it simple, it is always going to be on the second weekend of every month, the second weekend of every month. And so for those of you who are on the cusp of a divorce, you're not sure what you want to do, some of you are about to separate or have just separated, but there's something in you that says maybe there's hope, maybe there's a possibility for more. We want you to reach out to us, set up a discovery call. Let's see how we can serve you with a spirit of excellence. All right, so we're talking about the 11 causes of intimacy breakdown. I want to quickly go over what we discussed yesterday. We talked about how communication issues obviously is one of the biggest breakdowns that people experience, which impacts their intimacy. Number two, stress and life changes. Whenever you're dealing with work or significant changes in your personal life, that becomes the area of your focus. It distracts you, and the time and commitment that you would give to each other is not there in that season, and it could lead to a breakdown of your intimacy. Then we talked about emotional and mental health as a challenge. If I'm dealing with my own internal struggles, depression, anxiety, hypersensitivities to certain things, paranoia, whatever the issue may be, mental issues, it will impact my ability to emotionally connect, to meet your needs and give you what you want, because I'm dealing with my own stuff. And usually when I'm dealing with my own stuff, I kind of separate myself. I live in a silo, and I struggle. So it impacts intimacy. Next, we talked about physical health issues. Now, of course, if I'm not feeling good in my physical body, if I'm dealing with sickness and dis-ease, you see how I said that, dis-ease? Because once we call it a disease, we give it more power than we need to. If it's dis-ease, we believe we have the ability of overcoming it, and we will pursue healing and restoration from a different perspective. Or if I'm suffering from any type of sexual health issue that creates an insecurity, that creates a struggle within me, I tend to shut down, back away, and operate in my own guilt and shame. So it breaks down the intimacy. Then we talked about sexual dysfunction, more of that, right? So men who have erectile dysfunction, women who experience, vaginal pain, or any other type of sexual dysfunction that you may be struggling with. One of the areas that's most impacted, obviously, is sexuality, which is a form of intimacy. And when we stop having sex, I begin to feel rejected and abandoned. I feel no desire. I feel like you don't desire me. And so I begin to reevaluate, this relationship, my place in the relationship, and it tears down the intimacy. Then we talked about the lack of quality time. Yes, that's the number one culprit that most people struggle with. We have a tendency of giving people more and giving our spouse less. Giving the world the best, giving our spouse the least. And it often shows up with quality time. And so what we do is we mistake physical proximity for quality time, because we're in the same home, because, we live together, don't we? We eat meals together every now and then, don't we? We raise these kids together. You got the same address as I have. And we think that Sorry about that. Something that you share space with. And so we see the same thing here when it comes to couples. Oftentimes people go from being soulmates to roommates to roommates. So that roommate element is still there. And so as a result, there's no quality time. And then the last thing we talked about were trust issues. Now, of course, when there's a betrayal, it will destroy one's ability to trust. But it's more than just affairs. Listen, not everybody's been cheated on. There's all different types of things that can negatively impact a relationship where there is no trust for the person. There's no trust for the way that they think, for the decisions that they make. There's no trust to believe that they have your best interests at heart. I mean, there's an incalculable number of ways trust is compromised, but yet it is critically important because it's one of the foundational pillars of a successful relationship. So, continuing our conversation and picking up, we're going to deal with the other that will equal the 11. But before we do that, we're going to go to a quick commercial break. I want you to see this Last Chance Weekend and all that it is and all that it does and what the power of it is and what it could do for you. And on the other side of that, we'll be right back. Stay tuned. Every time I look at that, I'm like, man, what a powerful event. And so I want you to experience the same. So make sure you reach out to us. All right, we're talking about the 11 causes of intimacy breakdown. We're going to go to the next one, and I think this is a huge one. We're talking about none other than emotional distance. See, once again, you can be physically present. You can be engaging in physical proximity, but emotionally you are miles apart. You are as far apart as the East is from the West. When you first formed this relationship, there was an emotional connection, there was an intensity. Your thoughts, your feelings were all kind of wrapped up in who your partner was. But over the course of time, you begin to drift, and I think that's what it is. It is the slow drift. You begin to slow ghost your spouse, and you begin to move in opposite directions. And this happens is because over the course of time, we just have different interests. We're not into the same things. Different hobbies. We don't enjoy doing the same things. Different values. We don't believe the same things. Different goals. We don't desire the same things. And so we went from oneness in the beginning of the relationship to two individual separate ones functioning in this relationship. And I've got my friends and you've got yours. And I've got my TV shows and you've got yours. And I've got my debt and my bills and my financial goals, and you have yours. I have my interests and you have yours. Like, what do we really have in common other than these kids, other than these bills, other than this home? I mean, yeah, we may share faith, but we don't do faith together. We live very separate lives. And because of that, it creates a distance. It creates this artificial distance, and we feel disconnected, we feel lost, we feel alone and all by ourselves. And that's when we begin pursuing other people. And I don't necessarily mean affairs, but we begin pursuing other people. We're in pursuit for connection with someone. So whether it's our girlfriends, ladies, or whether it's our boys, men, or whether it's colleagues at work, whether it's now I want to engage in, I don't know, something outside the house, something that I enjoy, and maybe I'll meet people along the way. And then if our guard is down and no boundaries have been established, the slippery slope, I find someone of the opposite sex with shared interests and commonalities, and boom, that's how it happens. And so because I could not emotionally connect with you, I now begin to emotionally connect with someone else. And one of the things that we struggle with in these relationships, which cause an emotional breakdown, is our unwillingness to be vulnerable. Vulnerability says, I'm going to share what's going on my heart and in my mind with you without fear of consequences. I'm going to be emotionally naked with you. I'm going to reveal to you what's going on inside of me. But because we don't do that, the wall goes up and the emotional connection or the emotional distance does happen. We're no longer connected. So now distance is our disposition within this relationship. And this is how it starts. It starts by not talking. Then it's no touching. Then in this bed, we become physically distant. You're on one end, I'm on another. Over the course of time, I move from the bedroom to another. I move from the first floor to the basement. I move from the basement to outside the house. Now I'm physically distant. Now we're talking about separation. Because we didn't identify the issue from the beginning and solve it, we allowed it to go too long. It's just like the car. In the dashboard, you have that light on. You ignore it, but over the course of time, it gets progressively worse. And now it becomes an issue because of negligence. You avoided the most important thing. And so here we are in a space of intimacy breakdown. Let's go to the next. This is a huge one. Unresolved conflict. When was the last time that you Some people just don't want the drama. Some people go along to get along. Some people just want to keep the peace. And so in my attempts to do that, the easiest thing to do is to get as far away from you as I possibly can. So our conversations are very limited. Our conversations are very surface. We know there's issues, but we don't need to discuss it because I don't want to be bothered. And I don't need the stress. And I don't need the drama. And I don't want to be triggered. And I want to enjoy my day. And so all these issues go unresolved. Or maybe you're constantly fighting. You're always on edge. There's the back and forth banter. There's the low intensity warfare. That no matter what the issue is, it's always a problem. You always seem aggravated, agitated. You always talking and murmuring under your voice. You're always calling me out of my name. We're in constant conflict. We are the sufferers. And because of that, there is no resolution. So our environment is not conducive for anything that is healthy. Intimacy becomes extremely difficult when you're constantly on edge. So either we're running away from each other or crashing and clashing with each other. And what happens is we begin to build up resentment and bitterness and anger and all of these toxic emotions that are on the inside of us. And as they fester, it creates more emotional distance. And the walls of resentment, the walls of bitterness are built up, brick by brick by brick. These are the things that lead to intimacy breakdown. I hope this is helping you, but I bet you I'm meeting you where some of you are at. Some of you are dealing with this right now, and you're like, oh my God, this is my story. Are you a fly on my wall? How do you know what I'm going through? Because this is what all the couples go through who come to us. And this is why we say intimacy is the most important emotional need that you can establish in your relationship. Because once you have that, you have a master key that unlocks the door to everything. Let's go to the next. Cultural and societal factors. This is a big one. Now, we work with people all over the world, and I love it. I love the fact that we have clients right now in Israel, even in the midst of their conflict. We have clients right now in the Middle East. That's powerful. We have clients in Kenya, in Nigeria. We have clients in Canada. We have clients all over the United States. We have clients in South Africa. They're everywhere. In the Caribbean, we have clients. In Latin America, we have clients, Panama. And one thing I've noticed is that there's oftentimes these cultural and societal factors that can get in the way, that can cause the breakdown of intimacy. For instance, there are these cultural norms that we've been raised in, trained in, acculturated in from home. There's a family culture that we carry, that we bring into our primary relationships. And based upon that family culture, we have a belief system as it relates to gender roles. What is the role of a man and a woman? What does that look like in a relationship? Oftentimes, a couple is split. They have very different interpretations, very different definitions, very different ideas. And because they're not in alignment and they're not in agreement, that can cause a rift. Because now I perceive you as chauvinist. Now I perceive you as feminist. All of these isms get in the way, which cause nothing but division. So, sex and relationships, our interpretation, how we view it, what the cultural beliefs are associated with that. Oftentimes we're in conflict. So there's no shared belief system, no shared value system, no relational code of ethics, and it causes a breach in the union. And it impacts the intimacy significantly. And so maybe it's the internal conflict that you're experiencing, but maybe it's the external pressures that you receive as well. Because sometimes it's not the dynamic of you, but the influence and the impact of others, whether they be family members, in-laws, whether it be cultural, societal norms in society, the way that you're perceived and the impact that it has and how it influences your behavior. And so all of these things shape your expectations for relationship and marriage and family. And because we're not in alignment and there's no oneness, breakdown, that's right, breakdown of emotional intimacy. I'm going to go to the final one, and then we're going to open it up to questions to be able to answer and address these situations that you may be having as relates to intimacy. The last one is lack of effort and neglect. I tell you, this is what it really all comes down to. And this is the challenge, because we've been dealing with this for way too long. We've been struggling with this problem for far too long, yet no one seems to have the drive, the determination, the stick-to-itivism, the hunger, the thirst, the passion, the craving to do anything about it. And so we get settled in our ways. We get comfortable with our dysfunction. We get to a point where we've been experiencing this thing for so long that we assume, ain't nothing ever going to get any better. It's just going to be like this for the rest of this is just what I have to look forward to. What's the point? What's the point of fighting? What's the point of working on it if it's not going to produce? So your belief has gone down. Your expectations have gone up, but your belief has gone down. Your consistency in doing what's necessary has vanished. But yet you have all these high hopes and beliefs, or some of you have no hopes and beliefs. You are so apathetic about your situation. And what is the point? This is what we see. This is what we call relational fatigue. I'm just tired. And I'm sick and tired of being tired. And now you begin to take your spouse for granted. And now you don't even give them the courtesy and the grace that you once gave them. And now you begin to enter into neglect. We always talk about how the grass is greener on the other side. Of course, because that grass is being watered. Seeds are being planted in that grass. Sunlight is hitting that grass. The owner of that grass takes care of the lawn. Your grass could be just as green, but because of your lack of effort, because of your neglect, your grass has shriveled up. It's died. In fact, all you have is dirt. And you're looking at the facts. You're looking at the reality now of what is, convincing yourself what can never be. But if you take a moment to reflect of how it was in the beginning, it was just as green, it was just as luscious, it was just as plush as the grass over there. So is it the grass's fault? What fault do you play? What role do you play? How have you shown up or refused to show up that has caused that grass to shrivel up and die? Guys, we're talking about the 11 reasons there's an emotional, intellectual, spiritual, physical intimacy breakdown in your marriage. Now, knowing is half the power. Once you know, you can now do something with what you know. So the question is, how bad do you want it? Are you willing to do whatever it takes to get what it is that you say that you want? Are you willing to go beyond the conventional, what's normal, to get the relationship that you say that you want? It's possible for you. And what we're going to begin to do over the course of these shows is talk to you about how to restore intimacy in all of these areas. Listen, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. If you have questions or comments, if this is hitting you where you're at, we want to hear from you in the chat. Be right back right after these few commercials.
Welcome to the Couples Academy app. The Couples Academy app is your go-to hub for how to do marriage right. Get started with our app today by perusing our amazing features that conveniently allow you to connect. This app is packed with powerful content and resources to help you grow and stay connected. With this app, you can watch our messages, find marriage resources, watch, listen, and read the real-life stories of restored couples, sign up for events, read articles and blog posts, stay up to date with push notifications, share your favorite messages via Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or email, and download messages for offline listening. For more information about the Couples Academy app, go to couplesacademy.org.
Hey guys, we're back. You're watching the Couples Academy show, 11 Causes of Intimacy Breakdown. We do have a question that's not specific to our conversation, but does lean into intimacy and what causes a problem. So we have a question from Faith, and the question says, "Hi Hassani, love from UK. Wanted to know if unfaithful spouses deny the affair even with proof due to fear of the betrayed reaction or fear they will lose their spouse." I think the answer is in the question, and you hit it head on. There are a number of reasons why people may continue to lie and continue to deny even when there's evidence, but I think you hit it right on the head. There's a fear associated with it. There's fear of the consequences, and typically those consequences are, number one, if we stay together, our marriage will never recover. It will always remain in a broken space. You'll never be able to trust me again. You will constantly hold it over my head. I'm going to have to deal with this conversation for the rest of my life. Anytime I want to, say, engage in sex or have fun with you, you're going to be in so much pain, and you're going to bring up what I did, and I'm not ready to talk about it, and it's the one thing that you constantly want to talk about, and our entire relationship will be consumed with all things concerning this affair, so it's easier for me to deny. Now, even though you have evidence, you've got photos of me in the act, you've got audio recordings of conversations, you've got secret hidden cameras, and you've got video footage, right? You got it all. You have eyewitnesses. You've got testimonies. You've got everything. What's interesting is, even with all of the evidence that you present, you still feel like you don't have closure until your spouse at least admits it. Their refusal to admit and to acknowledge drives you crazy, because am I going crazy? Am I mad? Are my eyes lying to me? It kind of reminds me, you may not understand this, but in the United States many years ago, I think it was like 1993, there was a guy, Rodney King, who was beat up by the police, right? It was a horrible act of police brutality. And this dude is literally being beat up by like 12 different officers, whatever it was. And we're watching it on the news. And the news is trying to convince us that he's fighting back, that he's resisting. So in essence, they were telling us that our eyes were lying to us. And so oftentimes when a spouse refuses to acknowledge anything with all of the evidence, it's a problem. There's a fear that the relationship will never be back to the way it was, or there's a fear that if I tell you the truth, our marriage won't last. I have a fear of you leaving me, and that's the last thing that I want you to do. That's just two. So the ones you pointed out are spot on. There's an incalculable number of reasons beyond that, of course, but it's gaslighting. It's making me think that I'm crazy. It's not acknowledging anything, and it can only lead to more hurt and pain. So intimacy, let me just say this. Intimacy, into me see. I need you to see inside my mind, my heart, my motives, my intents, what was going on. That's very difficult for somebody to do when they have just been caught, or if they have a refusal to really put everything out on the table. They hide, they duck, they run, they cover, they do everything to avoid. And that's what he's doing. Got a lot of questions, sis. Let me go to the next one. At Faith, my husband is still in complete denial of his numerous infidelities, despite the mountain of evidence he's provided. The amount of evidence he provided, and despite my ongoing encouragement that there is no consequence for honesty. Okay. It just makes it incredibly hard to move on and heal. Denial is pain. Yes, I've got third-degree burns from the gaslighting. Totally understand. Well, let me ask you a question as we close up. This is for you and for everyone else who's watching. Is he open to talking with someone? Is he open to a counseling process? Is there someone that can get to him, that can get him to open up? You're saying that there's no consequences to his honesty. And I appreciate that because you want to get to the truth. You just want to know. But I have a lot more questions than what I would want to ask on this particular show. Because you said that there have been multiple infidelities. My question would be, this is more rhetorical, you don't have to answer it. How long has this been going on? How many affairs have there been? What has been done to address previous affairs? Are you just now finding out about these multiple affairs? Or does he keep doing it? You find out. He does it again, you find out. He does it again, you find out. And there's been no shift and change. And so what we know is that when you cannot change your spouse, because you can't keep him from cheating, you can't keep him from being honest, you can't keep him from telling the truth. At some point, you have to take the focus off of your spouse and place it on you. And you have to say to yourself, well, what can I do? What changes can I make within myself, irregardless of what he does? But I'm going to make changes for me. And in making these changes for me, as a consequence, it's going to force him to react and respond differently to me because I'm different. So the difference in me forces him to be different in his reaction to me, thus making him different. So if you can't find the source of his motivation to get him to be open and honest, you now have to begin to look inwardly and begin to strategize what your best self is, how you show up, how you respond. Maybe the way you're approaching it isn't working. Maybe there's another way. So a shift and change in how you do what you do can lead to the results. So if you need help with that, you should reach out to us. Let's set up a session. Let me guide you through a process to see if you can get a level of breakthrough. For everyone else, we appreciate you from tuning in. This is going to be a series. We're going to be here for some time, so get used to it. I hope that you sit down with your spouse and you watch these videos together and you have a deep dive conversation. And considering getting some help, we are here. We have amazing practitioners that can guide you through a process that can lead to your transformation and breakthrough. So love you guys. See you tomorrow for another great episode. Take care.